Welcome to The Explainer. You know when you look at a receipt and see those letters GST, we all just kind of nod along, right? Well, today we're going to crack that code. We're going to uncover the huge story that's actually hiding in those tiny little numbers.
So let's start with a moment I'm pretty sure we've all had. You've just bought something, you glance at the bill, and you see these acronyms: CGST, SGST. You know it's tax, of course, but what does it actually mean? And why are there two of them? Why is it split up like that? To really get it, we need to pull back a bit and look at the bigger picture. See, the answer isn't just on your receipt. It's tied to this massive change in India's entire tax system. And it was all built around one single idea: making things simpler. So before 2017, the tax system in India was a mess, honestly. It was this crazy, tangled web of different taxes. You had excise duty, service tax, VAT, central sales tax. I mean, the list just keeps going. And the worst part, each one had its own set of rules, and it could all change depending on which state you were in. What a nightmare for businesses, right? And then came GST, the goods and services tax. It was designed to be the answer to all that chaos. It just swept away that whole complicated mess and replaced it with one single unified tax. The big idea, the slogan, was one nation, one tax, one market. The goal was just to make doing business way simpler and a lot more transparent for everyone. So, the big day was July 1st, 2017. That's when this massive change officially happened. And from that point on, everything about how businesses and you dealt with taxes was just completely different.
Okay, so now that we have that background, let's zoom right back in on that receipt we were talking about. It's time to decode those letters, because this is where it all starts to make sense.
Right. So a receipt like this one might look simple, but it's packed with information. I mean, at first glance, yeah, it's just a list of stuff you bought and what it cost. But if you know where to look, it actually tells a whole story. Let's break it down piece by piece. First thing you might notice is something called a GSTN. Just think of it like a unique tax ID for the shop. It's like their fingerprint in the tax system. Every registered business has one of these 15-digit numbers, and it's got info packed in it, like, well, the first two numbers actually tell you which state they're in. Okay, next up is the HSN or SAC code. This is basically a universal code for, well, everything. It's like a specific tag that tells the tax system exactly what was sold. Was it a piece of chocolate, a computer, a service, like a haircut? This code makes sure the right amount of tax gets applied no matter what it is. And here we are, the main event, CGST and SGST. This is the answer to our original question: what do these letters mean? Well, they're just the two halves of the total tax you pay. It's super simple, really. The C is for central, so that money goes to the central government. The S is for state, so that money goes to the state government. The total tax is literally just split 50-50, right down the middle. So we've got the what and the why down, but what about the how? How does this tax money actually move through the system? Let's follow the journey of a single product, say from the moment it's made to the moment you buy it. Let's imagine we're talking about a watch, okay? First, the manufacturer makes it and sells it to a wholesaler. Then, that wholesaler sells it to a store, a retailer. And finally, the retailer sells it to you. Pretty simple, right? A manufacturer, a wholesaler, a retailer, and then you. At every single step, money changes hands. Now, this brings up a huge question. If tax is being charged at every single one of those steps, doesn't that mean you end up paying tax on top of tax on top of tax? It seems like the price would just get ridiculously inflated, right? Well, you'd think so, but the answer is actually no. And that's because of a really smart feature built right into the GST system. And that clever feature is called Input Tax Credit. You can just call it ITC. Think of it like a tax refund system just for businesses. So when a business buys something, they pay GST on it, right? But when they sell something, they collect GST. ITC lets them subtract the tax they already paid from the tax they've collected. So the formula is really simple. The GST a business has to pay to the government is just the tax they collected minus the tax they already paid. That's it. It's that simple subtraction that prevents the whole tax-on-tax problem and stops prices from spiraling out of control. Okay, but wait a second. If the manufacturer gets a credit, and the wholesaler gets a credit, and the retailer gets a credit for the tax they paid, who's actually footing the bill? Who really ends up paying the GST? Well, the answer is you, the consumer. You're the last stop on the line. Since you're not selling the product to anyone else, there's no input tax credit for you to claim. So you're the one who bears the full cost of the tax. And that's exactly why GST is called an indirect tax. The businesses are just collecting it along the way, but it's the final customer who actually pays it.
Now, obviously, the amount of tax you pay isn't the same for everything. It completely depends on what you're buying. All goods and services are sorted into these different tax levels, or slabs. So, essential things like milk and salt are at 0% tax. But then you have luxury items like a fancy car or an air conditioner, and those are up in the highest slab at 28%.
So, there you have it. The next time you get a receipt, it won't be a mystery anymore. You'll actually be able to see the story, the journey of that tax from your pocket to both the state and the central governments. It's like a tiny window into this huge nationwide system. And that kind of leaves you with one last question, doesn't it? If a simple receipt has a story this big hiding inside it, what other financial puzzles are out there, just hiding in plain sight?